I'm so pleased to be able to give a short lecture today, and the topics that I chose is, in fact, the reform, the possible reform of Japan-ASEAN policy coordination. You can imagine why I use the word coordination instead of partnership or cooperation. So now I feel that Japan has done so much for ASEAN in the history in terms of investments and trade. And Japan, in fact, has been under deflation for more than 15 years. So I think it's time that ASEAN will have to pay back that gratitude by trying to cooperate and coordinate with Japan in developing a policy that would be of the true mutual benefits for ASEAN and Japan. And certainly I would be biased to say that Thailand and Japan, we are the real friend in need, and Thailand is ready, and at the end I'll try to say why Thailand is the most suitable place yet for coordinating Japanese and Indo-China economic development projects. So much about the introduction. I would nevertheless try to outline first. We will have 6 topics to talk about. The first one is the deflationary economies in the Western world and the impact that we have to face. The second topic will be Japan's economic policy under Abenomics, which I find quite interesting, very, very exciting to see how it would develop, because it's such a brave policy announcement by any prime minister that I have seen since I was a student here in the past 40 years. The only one that I found interesting also was Prime Minister Koizumi, when he has tried to do a lot of things to change Japan. So I will try to touch a bit on Abenomics and how I feel. The third topic will be Asia and the new challenge for Japan and ASEAN, because the role of Japan has been a little bit backtracked in the past 3-4 years in Asia and ASEAN economies. I don't know why, but I feel that maybe it's because of the high growth of China and the more involvement of China into ASEAN that has been more policy-led things. But Japan has been very mature in terms of business establishment in ASEAN already, so Japan might not do much. But I think that the fourth topics would certainly be interested to Japan's policy, because we will have AEC formation in 2015, in 2 years. And then ASEAN will be an integrated economic community. So the fifth topics, then I would talk about economic collaboration between Japan and ASEAN, what we can do. And lastly, certainly, I'll touch on the Thailand as Japan's strategic partner in Indo-China. So that I'll try to do within 1 hour. Okay. Well, the West, I'll go fast with the first few slides, but just try to summarize that the West still have so many unsettled situations. It was quite a surprise for anyone in the world to see the subprime crisis, and in the end now all the advanced economies in the West has lost its AAA ratings. And with the US QE, quantitative easing, which has been the 3rd round, now the Congress and the between the Democrat and Republican, they are still discussing on how to balance the budget in the long term. And it was interesting to see that the first time that the Fed chairman, Bernanke, has warned the government and the Congress that if they stopped the QE suddenly, it might create a gap, a gap that's called famously as fiscal cliff. That means that you might face a contraction of the economy without a well-planned reduction of the injections and then well-planned restructuring of the government's budget implementation. But we also see that the euro economy is also got affected, and with all the PIIGS countries in the euro economies being in a very bad shape, the debt to GDPs in European economies now has, on the average, exceeded 100%, and that was alarming because it in fact is a breakdown of the macroeconomic discipline as led in by the Maastricht Treaty, which says that for macroeconomic prudence, you should not have more than 60% of debt to the GDP. And this is a pretty strong breakdown. Most of the countries in the euro economies now will have to try to do all of belt tightening, austerity measures. But the problem is, once you try to do this restructuring and austerity measures in the Eurozone, it seems that the situation has been getting worse and worse. Greece now has more than 20% of unemployment rate, Spain more than 25%, and in the other Euro economies now you see the average of 11% of unemployment rates. And that's, we still see no light on where that would go and how they would solve the problem. I think this is a cause that all the 17 countries in the Euros now are rated BBB or worse. That is about the same rating that Thailand got after the crisis. And it took us 5 years to regain the rating. But somehow, I would have to say that the attempt to recover the euro economies are much more difficult than the crisis in Asia. I think there are two reasons. Because in trying to resolve economic crisis, you need two parts of the stories. One part certainly is the financial assistance, financial support. That's not so difficult because there are papers. You can always pump in paper money, even though the national debt can go up a little bit. But once the economy come back, then it's okay to pay back all the debts. But the problem is not that it's not only about financial support. When I try to solve the crisis for Thailand, the most important thing is economic reform. And economic reform could not be done without the help of some big brother. For Thailand and ASEAN, we were helped by Japan. It was Japan's strong commitment to stay in ASEAN economies and inject equities into all their business establishments. But the West are more liberal, neoliberal type of organizations. They would fly out and sell everything because they are very global. So they would fly away from anywhere that they have less returns than expected. So this is what's happening in Euro economies and in the US economies, where the real sector, there were no real interest in Germany trying to help Greece or Spain in investments, in long-term investments or injection of the capital into the real sector development. So the balance sheet of all the companies, private sectors in these PIIGS countries are in a bad shape, and it will take them a long time to really try to get out of this of this balance sheet recessions without a real help in terms of long-term investment from some countries. Maybe Japan will have to go there. U.S. also have a lot of unfinished homework. You probably understood why subprime crisis started. When we had our crisis in Thailand, they blamed us for overborrowing phenomenon, and we were unable to pay back the foreign debts, and the baht was attacked by the hedge funds, and we will blame for weak institutions, financial institutions. We will blame for everything. But now, when it turned out to be the U.S. problem, it came out of very of neoliberalism, of the free markets, of financial innovations that could also destroy the economic structure of the U.S. So they still have to do a lot of regulatory framework to deal with the new financial innovations that are being developed all the time in this free market economy. I think Keynes also have said all the time that, and even Adam Smith has mentioned that the only market that need to be regulated would be the financial markets. But somehow the U.S. At that time, Greenspan has always mentioned it was healthy for the economy to have the housing booms and the real estate prices going up, and the economy was going back, having high growth because of these speculative motives. He said it was my speculative motives, but somehow it spread out to be the world's second crisis, highest crisis. High unemployment in the deflationary economy in the U.S. is getting better because of a lot of QE, quantitative injections. And that is very contrary to what they preached to us at the crisis time too. At the crisis in Asia, they told us that we have to do all the belt tightening. But when the crisis started in those advanced economies, they know that belt tightening alone will create tremendous unemployment, and with no real long-term investments and for growth, no recovery can be done. So the U.S. and the Euro economies have been injecting a lot of quantitative easing budgets into the system. But the hardest problem, I think, that U.S. faced with its own ways, overconsumption, and that is creating what we call the global imbalance. So balancing the global trade and managing the regional capital flows and how to deal with the world inflation or disinflation will become the major problems that the U.S. will have to try to work out. The results quite alarming for when the West was having the crisis and recessions. Too little growth, too high unemployment, too much debt, too much income and wealth inequalities, too great political polarization, and drag on balance sheet recessions. These are the big problems that haven't been settled. And some economists even forecasted that by 2015, if no right solutions were performed, Harry Dent, of course, one of the economists that did that, forecast that we might have the real recession, and not because of these financial innovation things, but because of the volatility of the commodity markets, like energies and other things, that would hurt and bring back the strong recessions again once you could not recover well enough.